Hi, Dr. Robert Hunt from Chagrin Falls,
Oh,
Exempted
well,
School
hi there.
Village. That's a mouthful.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So how is Dr. Bob? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. We
Good.
are, figuring it out, learning to work at home and balance children and the same things everybody else is doing right
Yes,
now. We're all in.
yes. Um, Everybody's virtual. All the teachers are virtual. And let it be known, we did not change our backdrop. We are not with each other at all. We
That's,
are practicing virtual distance. Although, with for those of you who are new to Zoom, you can change your background.
wow, that's
Live.
impressive.
I am live from the township hall, everybody.
I
Yeah,
don't have
that's
terrific. I'm just here.
that's a whole nother class.
That's right.
Um, so, and my daughter's a teacher, so I get to see the behind the scenes. Rocking it. These teachers are rocking it, right? Would you say?
Yeah, there's I'm often very grateful for the community that I live in, I work in. But sometimes, in time of crisis, you kind of really learn who surrounds you, and to watch our staff, our administrative team come together and get to where we were when we launched this thing it's just amazing. Tremendous amount of effort and work, and really brings you back to the core. What do we need to do for kids? And when it's essential and that's the focus, our staff gets the work done, and they're continuing to do that.
And for those of you who don't know, Dr. Robert Hunt, he is the superintendent of Chagrin Falls Schools. I assumed everyone knows you, but I shouldn't. You know what they say about assuming.
Yeah, I wouldn't assume that, right?
So if I'm not, there are going to be people watching this who don't have kids in school, and maybe don't understand a little bit about this. Isn't a break for the teachers. They didn't hand them materials and sent these kids home, and have their parents take care of this. They are still interacting with these students just virtually. Give maybe a little synopsis of what a day would look like for a teacher.
So, from a teacher perspective, it really depends on grade level. It's much different looking in a high school setting compared to, for example, my daughter's in kindergarten and what she has to do on a given day. But so, with my wife, who's an English teacher at the high school, it's, waking up, it's interacting with students, it's having these type of conferences, whether it's one-on-one, one-on-three, or one on 15, and kind of moving forward with curriculum. A lot of posting of information, sharing of information, and video conferencing. Video conferencing is much more difficult with the kindergartner, right? So,
Or
um,
more fun.
yeah, our teachers, put together kind of virtual learning environments in which you're going in, you're clicking on different websites, interacting with them. They record videos of themselves reading books, doing phonics activities, and you're more hands-on as a parent with your child, kind of facilitating getting through that. Now, having said all of that, she did do a Google Hangout with her classmates, last week, and we need to work on the mute button for everyone, but we're trying to do as much. It's as much about the curriculum and moving forward as connection and trying to maintain the relationship between teacher and student. That's really been our message. And I think, what might deviate Chagrin Falls in this virtual world than others is we've really tried to put a focus on the child and the relationship between teacher and student, and continuing that going forward, because everybody's experiencing stress and this is a big change. And having those positive adults in life, we know, is critical in helping students process and get through this.
Um, so are the students logging in so that the teacher has some sort of record that the student is actually doing things, for the older ones or the younger ones?
Yeah, so we have kind of dashboards. It really depends on what tools they're using. But, obviously it's, did you show up for the recording, and, did you participate in that? That's pretty evident. But they also can monitor, did students go to websites? How much time did they spend online? Did they complete activities and assignments? So all that's being monitored, and we're tracking students. And if there's issues, we're calling home or intervening. We're having our counselors intervene, maybe assign an educational aide to do check-ins. So it's really a team effort, well beyond just teaching staff, to make sure that the education continues.
Speaking of that, what are your assistant principals and principals doing? How are they staying relevant in this?
Yeah, so principals, when we created these kind of virtual classrooms, principals have access to every teacher's virtual classrooms. So they're poking themselves in there, checking on progress, checking on quality and content, and really interacting. And then we're being kind of barraged with decisions. Do you close the track? Do you close the school district? Do you have opportunity for staff to come in and pick up materials and maybe access some additional technology? So we're working through all of those things. What about graduation? What about prom? What about all of those things that are kind of, out there? We're wrestling and trying to figure out, so we can get out in front of them.
Yeah, I noticed that you closed the track. That was a little bit of a controversy. First, I applaud you, not that matters, but, I think anything that we can do as a whole is the best way to go, whether it be over dramatic or not. Right now, for these 2 weeks, I don't think anything should be over dramatic right now. So I applaud you, because the last thing we want to do is not do it, and then have something happen, because that's no good.
Speak to that because I've gotten some attention. One, the Ohio High School Association, Athletic Association, came out almost a week ago and recommended facilities be shut down. We tried to keep it open as long as we can, because we know that's an asset to the community and a resource the community likes to go to. With the governor's, the most latest order, he specifically mentions playgrounds. So we had a recommendation from the Ohio High School Athletic Association. Then we're closing playgrounds down. And if you know Harris Stadium well, you've got a playground inside the track. So, that certainly played into it. And the other thing is we were having, pretty large gatherings of kids up there on the field. So it wasn't necessarily the track, to quite honestly. It was the field and our concern for kids gathering and playing with the same ball, and really doing our part to try to help minimize this. So although it wasn't the most popular decision, I think it was the right thing to do at this time.
I agree. Should we have been, and you might not be able to answer this, hindsight is always 2020, but should we have been prepared virtually in the world that we live in? Should we have been prepared for virtual teaching? I know you had a training kind of right after this broke out. All schools kind of did, because we weren't ready for this. Should we have been ready for this? And this isn't Chagrin Falls. This is just our country in general.
Yeah, I would say from an educational side, we should be ready. And I think, we had we, like everyone, we have an emergency operation plan, an EOP, and it addresses pandemic, but it's about 8 steps. And when you think about, we're going to totally send all kids home and we're going to be operating virtually, there's a ton of logistical things. What do you do with attendance? What if you have students that are not logging in? What about kids without internet? What about students that don't have the necessary technology tools and support at home? So the logistics were more of the work than the actual technology. Honestly, our staff, especially when you start going grades 6 through 12, they've been operating in this environment to some extent. Now, you'd call it a blended learning environment, and I think that's the best model there is. You got that relationship piece, there's face-to-face interaction, they're communicating when necessary, but then you kind of break down the walls and you have this virtual environment as well. So it's pretty easy to leverage the technology. It really becomes interesting with, like I said, those young kids and how to do that, because it's such a different educational environment. I stood up in front of our elementary staff, and I've always been a secondary guy, middle school teacher, high school principal, secondary in nature. And I stood up and I'm thinking of my daughter, how in the world are you going to make this happen? And they have. Emmy looks forward. She clicks on a video and sees Mrs. Dugat. She smiles every day. And it's just an amazing amount of work and time, especially at their level. So I think there was a level of preparedness, but it was more in a blended learning environment, not in this environment where we would never see kids, because I don't think we believe that's the right model in terms of educating young people.
Yeah, that was my next question. Now that we have done this, will it be hard to go back? I mean, we had already kind of seen in the last 10 years these online classes, even in the high school level and the K through 8 level. Is it going to be hard to bring us back to, no, I don't think anything is going to be normal, a new normal, but will the new normal have a lot of virtual learning?
So interesting. We were looking at piloting about 8 different classes with some type of flexibility with virtual learning next year. Um, when I stood up and talked to our staff, I talked about in crisis, there's also opportunity. And the opportunity here was to really dive into this and see, what the outcome would be and what the results are. So we're thinking about how do we measure student achievement so we can progress. Sometimes it takes kind of a complete disruption to find and make positive change. And I think a lot of positive change will come out of this. We're just so knee deep in it right now. Everybody's struggling and worried. So the answer, the long-winded answer to your question is, yeah, I think a lot of good will come out of this. Do I think it will replace what we do and this is our new way of operating? No. But I think we'll be better in a virtual environment and it will enhance the education we give to kids.
Lunches, there are students that is the school is their only source of parental guidance, I would say, and lunches. How are you addressing the students that may have need for food?
So we essentially are we're providing delivery service to those families at home. So we're taking kind of a week at a time. So we'll take a week worth of food over to the house. We'll drop it off and they'll have that for their home. So
that's incredible.
That's kind of how we're doing it, and most districts are doing it. I think people always have a perception of Chagrin Falls, and there's no way that need would be there. But there are families that are struggling and work really hard to live in this community to be part of the school district, and we are providing for those families during this time.
What about with internet? That's also another need for some families, that they either don't have internet or I'm assuming they took home computers, right? The kids have computers from schools.
Right. So one of the things we kind of were able to leverage a plan very quickly, where I think a lot of districts were catching up. So one of the first things we did was find out who does not have internet, and we essentially are providing those residents with hotspots for their homes. So we've found out who those people are, and we're providing hotspots so they have internet access.
Amazing. So wrapping this up, first of all, I think you're doing an amazing job leading not only the teachers, but the students into moving forward and not a pause right now, which is, I think, so important. I think the more we sit around and think, the scarier it gets. So to keep our kids busy and focused on education, I commend you for all you're doing. Before we go, how is your family? But more, I don't want to say importantly, but I think a lot of people are going to want to know how Hawk is doing with this virus going through.
Yeah, so I think we're like every other family. We're trying to kind of figure it out, and kind of come up with our routine. My wife and I have gotten as far as trying to schedule with a Google Doc, like who's going to be online when and how we're going to manage all this, and when we're right next to each other. So that speaks to our creativeness. But I appreciate you asking. Hawk is good. There's certainly a level of stress with him. He has some immune issues as a result of his cancer treatments. So he has been pretty quarantined and will remain so until we can, we get to the other side of this. So I appreciate that. He's healthy and happy, and I'm surprised it hasn't caused us a little chaos yet.
Well, that's awesome, Tom. We all said hi. Two more questions. What are you doing to relieve stress? Robin, we talked to from Chagrin Yoga. She's puzzling. Anything new that you've developed in stress relieving, or old that you're bringing out the Yahtzee board or anything?
So we're doing a lot of games at our household with kids. So we've got that time of day each day. We're trying to get out. We went to Metro Parks the other day. We were kind of all by ourselves. I tweeted this out. My son, I think, wants to turn rock throwing into a river, into an Olympic event. So we're trying to every day get them outside. It's just a matter of making sure that we're far enough away from folks.
Okay.
And we're doing a little home exercise routine. We'll save that video for later.
I was going to say, let's get that up on the Twitter. And if one thing that you could say to the folks out there from you.
I would say, especially for Chagrin Falls, this community always rallies together when needed, and this is no exception to that. I did put this in a video I released. We as a school district are often kind of the central hub of things, and our core business is educating folks. But just like you're doing with the chamber, if there's a need out there, if there's something we can do to help rally people or identify or articulate someone in need of help, I think that's part of our function in a crisis situation. So please feel free to reach out to me or the school district, and we'll do whatever we can to get the message out, because we need to continue to come together. And although we're isolated, we have all this great technology to access each other. So, I just encourage people to continue to stay connected in whatever way they can. I saw you the other day FaceTiming with your dad, and I think that's really, really important to stay connected and interacting with folks as we go through this.
Where can they find you or the district?
So if you go to our district main page, we actually have a COVID-19 page, and all the resources, all the education, if you need help, all of that's there. But certainly my email is also accessible on the superintendent page, and all you need to do is shoot me an email, and I'll do whatever I can. And
we will put up right down here the Chagrin Falls website for the school, so people can link. Well, thank you so much. Be well. Tell the family we said hello, and we'll get through this. All right. Well, when you get to the long list of businesses that want to do this for you, Molly, you let me know, and we'll bring a hawk on. I love it. All right. We'll talk to you later. Bye. Bye. Thank you. See ya. Thank you.